Welcome back here to HGC North America, where we just saw Team Freedom take down Simplicity. But our next match will be ENDEMIC versus No Tomorrow. ENDEMIC looking to recover off of a rough weekend due to some unfortunate circumstances for them last weekend, Dreadnought.
But before that point, they had debatably quite a bit of momentum kind of coming out behind them, especially considering that they have that new life, if you will, within the role swaps that we have with Biggie over on the support role for them. So it's going to be interesting to see how that looks here this weekend.
Yeah, Michael Udall, for those of you that missed it, had an injury last weekend, and then on Sunday, B-Kid had an emergency he had to step away for, so 2 members were unavailable last Sunday for ENDEMIC. They're looking to recover, make sure and finish their way into the standings. We'll take a look at those, climb up, which it seems might be difficult. Octalysis, depending on how things play out there, but for ENDEMIC, they know that they're in the playoffs at this point. Things look good for them. No Tomorrow. They're down near the bottom, trying to climb out with a few last wins, hopefully desperately making their way. And if not, going into the Crucible, sharpening some of your skills, because they're another team, Dreadnought, that after the Western Clash, came back with multiple role changes of their own. We've talked about that at length for them. But there have been some bright spots that we've seen from a team like No Tomorrow coming back from the Western Clash.
Yeah, they have definitely, had, I feel like, moments, especially when looking at players like Jay Shrite, I feel like has been able to stand out, as we always talk about, with things like his Hanzo here. But the team overall, as you stated there, no matter the result here, there's something to be gained, I feel like, from No Tomorrow's position here. Based on the role swapping that they have coming in, any amount of cohesion that they can build in that point in time, no matter what their outcome is, whether it be playoffs or Crucible, is very much going to be standout for them.
The big part for them, when I look at No Tomorrow, is that they've taken a game in all of their last 7 series.
Yeah.
So they're competitive throughout. So there is a lot going for them. We'll see if they can maybe pick up some more wins here. But first, we heard from B-Kid and Jay Shrite about this matchup for this weekend.
With ENDEMIC, your mentality, it's we know we need to beat the next 3 teams for we be out to the Crucible. Then we are trying to focus more on yourself, not your opponent, like figure out how it's your best play style. We know you are have problems in the mid and late game. In the most of your games, you are having good early games. But yeah, we know your problems. We are trying to fix this. If Crucible be the case, we will be ready to everything, and we always do your best to try put your feet out to the Crucible and see what's gonna happen.
Our team's doing pretty well, but last week after Udall got a minor injury at the gym, couldn't practice that much last week, so it was very unfortunate. But and we're gonna come back stronger this week. This week is pretty important to us, but we're looking forward to playoffs. I mean, we're gonna try hard and try to win it, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna win it, but we're gonna focus more on getting better and then play well in playoffs to make the BlizzCon. I think Jay Shrite is a very hardworking player. I think he still shot calls for the team, so he's probably the key player for their team, in my opinion. If we're at 100%, I believe that we can 3-0 very convincingly.
We heard about Jay Shrite and Dreadnought. You mentioned him as being a bright spot for No Tomorrow. He currently sits at 3rd in North America in terms of total damage per minute, which means he's doing a lot for his team. On the other side, the number 2 player is that of Dansky. But since we've seen Michael Udall make his switch back over to the ranged role, he's picked up more of that Junkrat style. I'll siege up, I can do hero damage when needed, but Dansky, you're going to be that superstar. And that was a dynamic that prior to last weekend when we saw the sub come in. But prior to that, Michael Udall had been standing out on something like the Junkrat, and Dansky has always been a highlight on whatever team he's been on. They're going to need to do a lot more to get to the playoffs, but here against No Tomorrow, that matchup of that backline is going to be intriguing to watch with Shrite on the other side.
And now that you put it that way, I kind of had a bit of epiphany there for a moment. When you look at Mike Udall and the way that he plays, especially in the mid to late game, depending on which hero he is and everything else, but when he is on a roster that is sitting near the top or potential to be towards the top of North America, it's always with almost an Arthalon-esque playstyle. And maybe not as flashy, but he loves that off-lane mid-game pressure, demanding response in multiple areas. I don't think that it's individual individual. It's necessarily individual as much as is a team play style, but he's one of the few that kind of fit into that, again, off-lane pressure there. And so it's going to be cool to see that come to light again, because we've only gotten one weekend, really, with them, you know, in this new form.
We're waiting to see more. Let's find out what Battleground we're going to start things off here between these two teams. Because with that role, him switching over to that other side, he said it's easier. The reason they made that change was it's easier for him to shot call. Battlefield of Eternity is going to be Battleground #1, picked up by No Tomorrow. ENDEMIC, they took Braxis away. Dragonshire taken away by No Tomorrow. But on Battlefield of Eternity, the heavy rotations, the playing around fog, they're not exactly like every other Battleground. This is a 2-lane Battleground. You know where the majority of people are going to be. There are some tricks that you can pull out, but this is a heavy skirmish, potential poke style map. We've already talked about Tyrande, but prior to that, this would have arguably been her best Battleground. Still pretty strong here.
Yeah, still very much a viable option when looking towards Battlefield of Eternity, but also with the map bans coming in, with the Dragonshire removal and the priority onto BOE, though No Tomorrow's been one of the few teams in North America with the comfortability of going towards Battlefield of Eternity. It puts it in a position to where I feel like it shows that they're coming in with a pretty big game plan, and it's removal of macro, focus on the team fight, and bring those skirmishes as fast as they possibly can. We'll see if that carries through, not only when it comes to decision-making, drafting, and shot calling, but also with the map selection as the series unfolds. But it does seem like there's an element here of, you know, bringing the fight and making sure they get team fights for No Tomorrow.
Yeah, you mentioned that. They've picked this Battleground. This will make the 4th time that they've picked it. I believe the most of anybody that picks BOE, maybe outside of Octalis, who does like to go here, but in North America, very rare.
Yeah, in North America, it's almost unheard of. You know, the only region really that Battlefield of Eternity is a reasonably common map within their Battleground cycle has only been Korea, really, ever. You know, Europe might be able to pick it up a little bit more as of late. I haven't looked at the entirety of the region, but overall speaking, Korea is the only one where you like, oh, Battlefield of Eternity, that's not surprising. And no surprise that MVP Black / Gen G was the team to really start that trend.
Let's see if Hammer comes out here. We've seen teams run Sergeant Hammer on this Battleground before. ENDEMIC, their priority has been different as of late with the changes and not being able to see those changes really come to fruition with last weekend, but it will be a Genji ban to get things started.
One thing to keep in mind with Tyrande, you know, being a threat and something we might see here, Genji is a hero that is really difficult for her to handle due to she's relying on somebody else setting up that crowd control, but most people don't have a point and click to set it up, and you shouldn't ever be able to reliably hit a Lunar Flare against a Genji. So with that banned out, I wonder if that was going to lead to more incentivized, you know, priority there for ENDEMIC, but not wanting to deal with the Hanzo race, understandable. Even a denial of Jay Shrite having that for himself. Maybe something like the Li Ming, which is going to be picked up here.
Now we'll see if that does come in with the Tyrande. Scatter Arrow plus a Mart. That seems like a lot of fun. Hanzo on this Battleground. I don't have my notes in front of me, but if I remember correctly, 78% win percentage between our major league regions, between the 3 major regions. 78% win percentage on Battlefield of Eternity. I hear he's a good hero here.
He's all right.
But conversely, the stat I brought up in our previous series Dreadnought, Deckard Cain sitting near a 60% win rate globally coming into this weekend, but on Battlefield of Eternity, 37.5% win rate, and it's not due to lack of trying.
Yeah, he has the sample size possible, for sure. I think a lot of it comes down to, at first glance, you think Deckard with the pots in the long run is going to be able to sustain for long periods of time, and he very much can. But rarely do you ever see that scroll of ceiling initiation lockdown like you see in a standard laning circumstance, because teams divide around those individual chokes. Yes, he hits 1 to 2 people, but we know him to zone and force that splitting, which right now the territory of the Battleground itself does it. And the only place he can hit those is on defensive immortals, realistically speaking. And that's why it gets so difficult there.
The Blaze ban, No Tomorrow, we've seen them run. Li Ming, sometimes you need that extra auto attack damage, but because Tomster moved to the range, we've seen him play a lot of Thrall in some heavy compositions, but it also brings to mind maybe a Zeratul could come out. This is a Battleground we see him sometimes come out. I feel that would be too much into the spell damage side when you've got a Li Ming and Zeratul. Diablo, scary to charge on, but they will stick to the Thrall.
Interesting decision as well here to hold on to the support. That's not something you typically see purely on the information given by No Tomorrow on all their damage sources being limited. So there's very rarely a support that can exist in an outlier case outside of Divine Shield, and Uther is one of those, oh, that's what they were going for. But there's no Divine Shield target or any major setup that I see coming out from there. So we'll see if that comes back to bite No Tomorrow here. This is going to be Arthas and the Junkrat. Jayhow, this is way more Arthas. There's no Maiev in this game. Way more Arthas out of nowhere for North America.
This is Arthas on a secondary tank role.
Yeah.
So if it's a matter of protect Hanzo, you've got it. Arthas does very well against a Thrall, thwarting some of those auto attacks.
Also has better clear advantage and doesn't suffer in trading into the Thrall in a lane matchup. That's one thing a lot of people, you know, when you trade into the Thrall, you're like, oh, you know, I'm going to hold my own. Then you need a Wind Fury. You're like, oh, quickly, this is not going to look that good. Arthas has the self-heal to be able to sustain through that burst and then gets the auto attack debuff. As long as you stay on top of him, you will trade up and you win in the macro front, which is pretty much the biggest indicator against the Thrall matchup here. So I like the pick. It's just I'm still in awe. I'm not against Arthas coming back, but I just the level and escalation of priority from never seeing play to just everybody plays him now.
It does feel weird.
Yeah.
It wasn't too long ago. It was a few months ago. I remember I was talking to some frontline players, and I'm like, why is Arthas not played? Whether as a secondary or a primary, like he's just too weak. There's too many counters. There's too many things against him. Okay, I wasn't as crazy as I thought, apparently. Arthas, still one of the OGs that we have here coming back. One of the OGs that got reworked that's absent, the Tyrande from this draft. Kharazim, you could argue it's Battlefield of Eternity, does have greater potential to individual race, has a lot of playmaking potential. We've seen them play it before. So, no Tyrande. We get the Deckard. Interesting draft. The Tyrande versus Deckard composition now, I'm really curious about when it comes to Battlefield.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think this is a situation because of the high Deckard from Endemic. I also wonder how much of that is the support swap coming in for that level of priority, but we'll find out here. In the blue, it is going to be No Tomorrow, where we have Casanova there on the Murd, and Tomster repping out the Thrall, Jay Shrite on his Li Ming, looking for resets. Jin on one of my favorite heroes for him, Yrel. And last up, Akafe supporting the squad on Kharazim.
On the right side in red will be Endemic. Dainsky will be on the Hanzo. Cure on the Arthas. Biggie in that support role will be on Deckard. Michael Udall on the Junkrat. B-Kid on the front line for Diablo.
Who, by the way, has a different level 1 that we haven't seen come to light too often here in competitive Heroes of the Storm. No Feast or Fear, no Devil's Due, no Soul Orientation. It is going to be the Soul Shield. Ridding more, giving spell armor there with the activation on a 45-second cooldown over to the Diablo. Makes that Li Ming pick look a little less appealing now, Jayhow.
Just humor me for a moment.
All right, I'm prepared to humor you.
Just, you're a support player. Let's just imagine you're a support player.
Okay.
And you had a little bit of a falling out with an ex-teammate.
Yeah.
And you get a chance to, I can pick Tyrande, or I can pick a support where I can dive on you, try and trade out. Which do you pick?
Depends.
If your name is Akaface.
Okay, then I go for the one I can dive on top of.
It's going to be fun. You know, there's always the disciplined approach when you're at the pro levels, but there's the rivalry now. Akaface and Michael Udall, long-standing teammates for a very long time. And I really like what Cure's doing there, freezing that wave. Something I got to speak with Goku last night for quite some time about solo lane preferences. That's a very good point. If you can't win the lane, just freeze that right under your towers. Yrel can't come in there, so you gain no real advantage. But the
North toss interrupted.
Yeah, that's big.
Root down, and first blood here over to Endemic. Nice scroll of sealing out from Big Impact, but can't help but feel like a lot of that was the setup there of B-Kid.
We've seen so many Diablo bans lately. Dreadnought and Battlefield of Eternity has been a favorite for a lot of Diablo players. So to let it through, you will be risking a lot of the setup. it gives you so much control. You mentioned the spell armor that's there. Rhyme picked up for Arthas. When you have a Hanzo on your team, it is just a matter of survive. Or protect, I should say. And let the Hanzo do work.
Being able to zone off, though, and going with this build, it should hurt a little bit when it comes to overall survivability, as long as Li Ming, you know, wearing Li Ming damage is not the only focus there, and absolutely cannot be with Karazim, Thrall, and Jarrell available. So we'll see how it unfolds here. Everything else, though, according to plan.
Ooh, we got sledgehammer action, though.
Hey, that's been something I've been asking for some time. I like that we finally get it here. Another one of those. I'm always surprised for how long-standing those options are, and then suddenly it shows up and then gets converted over. It's one of those, I'm not mad, why now is my only question.
Another one. There was some contemplation by Jay Shrite. Did end up going dominance, but it took him a while to pick that talent up. I mentioned it earlier. In EU, they picked up Triumvirate on this Battleground with no Sergeant Hammer on the other side, something where you can splash off of a hero or the Immortal to splash onto a hero and get that cooldown reduction for some extra poke, but still dominance.
Now that we do know that talent adjustment here for Casanova, one thing to keep in mind is it gets really kind of confusing in the early game. To Stormbolt a hero or the Immortal? In the long run, heroes are going to trade off a lot, not only for the raw damage output, but it also scales with the amplifier of that level 4 talent. So watch Casanova. Pretty much you want to be Stormbolting on cooldown, though, with this type of build for the most part.
Holding point for now, as Dainty has managed to get some early game poke in. B-Kid will absorb these shots as Biggie throws down the extra heals. Caught just at the end of that, but Casanova able to dwarf Tonks to some range of safety.
No minions were denied on the bottom lane, though. Prepped by Endemic there with that Junkrat. Now the commitment here for Endemic, at least for a moment. Casanova comes in with the door toss. Stormbolt lands. Good juke with the natural agility from Dainty. Response coming out from B-Kid. Now Jin, he's going to leap in, throw down that hammer. Knockback 2, Scroll of Ceiling. It's going to lock down Akka and Jin. But no Tomorrow. Bringing the fight here is Junkrat trying to rid of the race. Will kick off the halftime show. I say that.
The scariest part is the longer this goes, 7 is moments away. And Hanzo,
there
easy poke. Finishes Scatter Arrow at level 1 already, so extra arrows coming out. Now has the cooldown reduction on autos, which makes this race even more in favor of Endemic.
No Tomorrow knows, and that is why you see them collapsing, but they're losing when looking towards the minion wave on the top half. That is 6 minions. Now Arth is not able to get the dismount onto Jin, limit that. Jin now coming back. That is a lot of experience going to be lost, and that's part of the reason it was close in experience. Jayhao and now is getting miles ahead in favor of Endemic. The double offlane control without the lack of race of No Tomorrow is really hurting them, and so much so that I think they have to pick Seeker this game if they're going to compete with that. We see the Calamity pickup, and now I go, what are you going to do to stop this offlane pressure, this team pressure of Endemic? We'll find out here.
Cure, he's in trouble, surviving for now. Icebound Fortitude supplying some armor. They hold, and now the rest of Endemic moves forward with the Hanzo. They take down the rest of the health bar. We'll have some shield, around 30 to 40% of that shield. Still early in the scaling department. Unlikely to get a fort unless they can get a kill on top of this.
See what we can make happen here for Endemic. Immortal up.
Well, I say that. They get the flip. Tomster on the Thrall. That's a lot of melee. B-Kid taking a lot of damage and a lot of poke. Until it moves into melee range, the melee heroes, it's one of the areas where we see Greymane suffer, is that he can put damage out, but his true power is in Worgen form. But getting that Immortal into position is tough. B-Kid, there's a couple of roots, multiple roots. Gets the flip back onto Jin. Scatter Arrow's going to land, but not enough for the takedown. The fort barely surviving, but that will get taken down.
Stun lands now onto Cure. He's able to retreat for a little bit here as we see the Scroll of Ceiling goes down. The Shadow Charge answers. The flip over going to be dropped onto Jay Shrite. The one kill in Heroics will be here for Endemic if they can find it. B-Kid is the focus for now as The Howling Blast thrown out from Cure. Stop that advance. Here's Heroics. Do they just Dragon Arrow rip it? There it is.
There it is.
But
There's
nobody's in range. Everybody went backwards. J-How. The communication there was absolutely off from ENDEMIC. 3 people clicked right, and Dansky's clicking left.
Well, you know, they'll have another crack at it later.
They will.
I'm watching it. Junkrat's been soaking that top lane the whole time, and 10 escalated very quickly.
That's one of those moments where I feel like Dansky's like, team? Don't get me wrong, even if they get that kill, is that worth the double heroic cooldown that it probably would have cost? Who knows? You know, it is one of those time and place we'll never know for sure, but it was very interesting. That's not something we have typically see here, I feel like, from ENDEMIC. Look at this huge collapse from Cure. Oh my. Oh my.
With the 10-tier advantage, there's almost no way No Tomorrow can contest that. It's Casanova.
They don't.
He's there. Michael Udall will concussion mine by his way to safety. And now Cure, he's going to enter the fray. Akapace uses the extra dash.
Arrow up. Dansky has patience this time. Not going to go for it.
Hanzo here, because of the speed at which he can take that, no chance for level 10 to be picked up. Concussion mine there just for safety. And they'll move over into race range. Dansky just off the mark with some of that geometry.
Now just does the Hanzo standard. No Tomorrow doesn't have the ability to apply pressure, at least not yet. We get Earthquake pickup here for No Tomorrow.
That's surprising to me. It's been a very good counter to get to the back line, and you have the Riptire on the other side. The engagement, because you don't have to come in from front to back, the Sunder has really shown to be a very strong and valuable initiator and even counter initiator, which is where I know you like it in a lot of circumstances, positionally depending, but...
And this, it's really weird because I feel like this Earthquake has to be used just to run away from Army of the Dead, or in all other cases, it's probably going to be more of a devastation. We'll find out, though, here, as the... Just mainly because the Lightning Breath, it's like the Diablo's going to stand still anyways and accept his fate if the Earthquake comes out.
And Arthas will live in the middle of all that.
Yeah, and he'll just be like, okay, let's fight. Jin going to get Shadow Charge against the wall. 7-sided goes down onto Cure. Dragon's Arrow is going to land as the knockback from the boss is actually there as the scroll is sealing. Lightning Breath going through. Thompson's going to be the focus as Lornado knocking back B-Kid. But Thrall is the first to drop here on the side of No Tomorrow. Maybe not the last. Casanova can't find a way out. And ENDEMIC, 2 for nothing, 3 for nothing.
Oh my.
As they pick up Jin and now an Immortal.
I'm not going to lie. I see that Riptire. He was so far away popping that. Michael Udall got 3-man max value just at point-blank range. Confirmed the kill onto the Thrall, but did some serious damage. And serious damage to that Immortal as we have a 12,000 health shield. Very healthy for the side of ENDEMIC as they already work down this top 4. They'll be looking at Keep Wall. And if things go well, Keep. If things go tragically bad for No Tomorrow, well, there's only one thing behind the Keep.
Yeah, the biggest thing to look at is that little blue thing on the left side of your screen, that gate. When that drops, then look at the positioning of Dansky. Now watch it creep to the right-hand side when that Dragon Arrow rips. Be afraid or be ready to fight here. No Tomorrow is going to have to deal with that.
Should have fixed Syndragosa.
I'm always a fan of Syndragosa, man.
Sidewall's down, but it's the gate that matters. That's when it opens up.
Dansky not going to pull back yet. Here he goes. Dragon's Arrows through. 2-man, 3-man lockdown. There's the Lightning Breath. Lornado, Riptire, Akaface couldn't even control his hero. That is a handoff keyboard. If I have ever seen one, J-How, ENDEMIC seems to be wiping the floor here with No Tomorrow towards this top keep. And now looking to end this game.
It's still healthy enough that they can threaten a kill and just try and siege up here. Still several seconds and a lot of health left on this Immortal. As ENDEMIC already taking the shields down, looking to close this one out early. Li Ming comes back with some damage of their own. Earthquake down in return. No Tomorrow trying to hold, but the Immortal onto the core has brought this down to 40% and falling. And ENDEMIC will take game number 1 on Battlefield of Eternity.
Biggest thing to note here with that victory for ENDEMIC is not only the control displayed, because again, we've only gotten 1 weekend actually with these role swaps coming in, but the biggest thing was the understanding of the macro control advantages. We saw a very good execution of the 1-3-1 with a 3-man defense squad against No Tomorrow with 2 advantageous off lanes. That was very well done from ENDEMIC, something that I can't help but feel like in the future drafts, No Tomorrow is not going to let happen. And Battlefield of the Tourney, one of the few Battlegrounds that can enforce an advantage through that playstyle. But ENDEMIC looked really good and a very good understanding of some of the intricacies of the Battleground, which when, again, rosters that Mike Udall is on, it seems like when they're feeling hot, those type of things come to light a lot more often.
Just the Hanzo being let through on Battlefield of Eternity. If there's one hero and one Battleground where it's like
Kerrigan on Shrine's way back. You just go, nope.
You have to.
Sylv on Haunted Mines, nope. There's quite a few, yeah. It's really tough. It is concerning. I can't help but feel like a lot of that was relying on hopefully they'll let it go through. Maybe this Tronda is going to be a higher pick priority on the other side. Then we get ourselves a Jay Shrite Hanzo. The one concern for me more than anything was the Calamity versus the Seeker. Normally, I mean, you've heard me. I've actually been the first to be like, I don't want the Seeker as consistently as we've seen, especially if there's no Sergeant Hammer. But when you're losing the off lanes and you're losing the race, one of those has to be made up for. You typically can't make up for off lane until you just go, can we redraft? So then how can you talent-wise make Li Ming more threatening within the race of the 3 to 4 man commitment that you already had? And that was like, well, Calamity's not going to do that. You already had the kill potential. You needed the race opportunity, from my perspective at least.
Well, there was even the contemplation on whether we would get Triumvirate or not. Man, we ended up getting just the standard Li Ming build.